Good evening, everyone. Welcome to all of you. You're watching Sim Experience South Africa, and it's our season finale. So I'm pretty excited to be here with you. My name is Jan Grunes. I'll be your commentator for the night, and we are racing at Bathurst. Wow, I've been looking forward to this. I'll quickly just take you through all of the admin work, and before we get going. So, looking at the championship points, and this is an interesting one. So, Dennis Mitchell, Timo Smit, and Mt.Panorama having one intense battle for the championship lead and the standings. So, the previous race, we saw Timo Smit jumping ahead of Donnie van Rooyen with 2 consecutive wins in one evening. And it's going to be one hell of a fight. It's going to come down to the last lap here at Bathurst. So definitely keep an eye on Dennis Mitchell, Timo Smit and Donnie van Rooyen. And then, not to be discounted, there's still a bit of a battle there between Dylan Versage and Melvin Goos. So Dylan needs to keep sharp if he wants to keep hold of his 4th position. And then, of course, Melvin still has a mathematical possibility of jumping into 4th. So it's going to be interesting to see how those two battle it out. And then after them, it's Mornay Deploy in 6th, Alistair Barnard in 7th, Sean Webber 8th, Peter Geldnys and Peter Grobler 9th and 10th, Craig Wesley 11th, Ian Upton 12th. Even further, Michael Rust in 13, Rowan Bauer, James Leach, Marius van Wyk, Rian van der Westhuizen, Sean Johnson, Gabi Gous, Dani Stander, Herman Nieuwoud, Andre Hildebrand, Jason Craig, and Skalk Versage. So it's going to be really exciting. Looking at our weather, and it is cool today. It's 22 degrees Celsius air temperature, 31 degrees on track, some light clouds, which explains why we're having some pleasant weather, and we're racing just after lunch, so hopefully they haven't had anything bad, and you definitely want to have a very settled stomach for what's going to happen on this track. We'll take you through it in a bit, but it is a very interesting track. So Bathurst itself, it sits close to Bathurst in New South Wales, Australia. It was opened the 17th of March in 1938, so a very, very old circuit. And I didn't really believe it the first time that I read this, but it is a street circuit. Now, I think how much of it actually being public roads is going to kind of come into question. But there are, if you look at the track side while these guys are doing laps, you'll see a few poor, unfortunate souls who can't access the driveways during a race. And that is actually quite important because normally, I'm not exactly sure how it worked during COVID times, but October's normally the time for the Bathurst 1000, and then February is the Bathurst 12-hour race. So this track, it's called Mt.Panorama circuit, but everyone knows it as Bathurst. And normally with this track, if you ever really think of it, it basically becomes synonymous with endurance racing, which is kind of puzzling since it's a very, very tricky track to drive, especially with these cars. It's going to feel very narrow in certain parts, and then very open when it comes to the different straights. So you start out on the right hand side at the pit straight. It's a very short pit straight, and then the 90-degree left-hander of Hell corner, and it is one hellish corner because if you don't get it right, you're going to be a sitting duck on the mountain straight all the way up to the mountain, and then you start climbing. So into the quarry bend, nice right-hander, slightly fast but not too fast. Then the cutting, a very, very scary corner. You're going to cut into the wall essentially, but you can't cut the track too much. And then you've got Griffin's Mount, not too much of a corner, Ride Park, and then Salmon Park, reaching the top of the mountain, and then you start leveling out. So McPhillamy Park, a very, very tricky corner, very fast, and in these cars, very difficult to drive. Now, as we on the screen, you can see as one of the cars goes down the mountain. So with Skyline, we start dipping. The S's we just saw on screen, the Dipper, all very tricky corners as you start climbing down the mountain. And then you've got Forest Elbow, which I think is the corner where we see Sean Weber on now, which is a very critical corner as you start heading down the Conrad Straight. And it's a very, very important straight, this one. Then you've got one last tricky section at the end of the track, the Chase, which is basically a complex of corners, which is like one very large chicane, and then ending off with another 90-degree left-hander of Murray's Corner. Very beautiful, very tricky track, and it's 6.213 kilometers long, which means it takes about 2 minutes to go around, and that's exactly why Timo Smith and Sean Weber now and in Upton have only done one time lap, so it's about 4 minutes that they've had to go around. Also interesting, we say they go up the mountain, it's a bit of a hill, but the height difference from the lowest to the highest point of this track is 174 meters. That's quite a lot, very, very steep, and that downhill section makes for some really interesting racing to watch, so I'm looking forward to that. Looking at the YouTube channel, remember to send your shout outs if you have a favorite driver that's participating. Feel free to say hi. We've got Herman Divo just saying that he doesn't hope that Donnie has bad luck tonight. Malmco is commenting on Donnie flying, and I do agree. So I saw Donnie van Rooyen do a 206 334 during practice. I also see on screen that Timo Smith has done a 206 172. So it's going to be interesting. Oh, and we just have a time from Van Rooyen, so it's definitely not his personal best, the 206 810. So I would imagine that he's going to go around for another go. But it's going to be a really interesting qualifying race, as we've got Timo Smith now sitting in the pits and Donnie van Rooyen going around, starting to climb up the mountain. So yeah, and then Monet Deploy just saying good evening. Good evening to you too as well, Monet. It's definitely nice having you here, and for everyone else as well, feel free to say hi. Feel free to say who you're supporting. I think it's mostly the drivers that have commented on the YouTube channel. So I don't know whether they're going to try and see how everyone's doing, the times they're doing, but unfortunately for you guys, I missed that killer of a lap from Timo Smith. So, Donnie van Rooyen ready to go down the mountain, 4/10 down on his time. Is he going to be able to keep it together? So, as he goes down the S's, losing some time, and it's a very scary section of the track. I'll put you on board with someone as they go down there in a bit. But it becomes really tricky. So now entering onto the Conrad Straight, and Van Rooyen has got a really nice start onto the straight here, so this is going to count in his favor, and we'll see what he's able to do with his time. So still slightly gaining on his time. I'm looking here into that extended chicane that I spoke about, still keeping up on his bubble, so that's on his delta. That's looking very good. It's going to come down to the last corner and losing some time on the exit, but the line is just there. He barely keeps it together across the line, but Donnie van Rooyen putting in a 206 274, which is better than the time they put in on practice. Still not good enough for Timo Smith, but that's a very impressive lap time there from Donnie van Rooyen. So looking really good. Dennis Mitchell also now getting on the board with a 207 924. Why don't I put you on board with him as he nears the edge of the mountain, right about to take the plunge. This is that high-speed corner that I spoke about. Very tricky not to oversteer out onto the outside. Down the mountain we go. And you can see how you need to really think ahead with these corners. You need to know where the car is going to go after each turn, and there's no time for thinking. Ian Upton jumping into fourth, and then Dylan Versace jumping into third. A lot of time coming on the board. Mt.Panorama also now on the board in 7th place. And there's Mitchell showing us how to get down the mountain in one piece. So going to be really interesting to see people trying to follow one another through that series of corners. And it's also going to be interesting to see with those confined parts of the circuit what happens if someone hits a wall. I definitely don't wish it on anyone. I hope we do not have an instance like that. But it's also going to be interesting to see how the drivers cope if something like that is thrown into the works. So we'll leave Dennis for his current lap. I see Timo Smith also exiting the pits, so he might not feel as safe after that time that Donnie van Rooyen puts in. Ian Upton massively improving on his time, so if he can keep it together through the last few corners, so through Forest's elbow, see losing a bit of time, but that was just to kind of get a better exit onto the Conrad straight. And you can see he's gained back the time, he's maintained that delta, and now it's down to the chase. So things looking good here for Ian Upton as well. He has the possibility of jumping a few positions. So if he can keep the pace up now, if he can just stay level with his current time, that's a very fast entry for the chase. You can see him losing out a bit on the exit, still managing to keep a good portion of its time. I know Sean Webber and Dylan Versace are going to be very worried about this. Unfortunately, Ian Upton losing a lot of time, cutting just a bit too much curb there on the last corner, on Murray's corner. And that just goes to show how tricky this circuit is. Ian Upton getting out of the way of everyone that's on the qualifying lap. You can see Dylan Versace there going up the mountain. He's still on what seems to be an outlap. Looking at Mt.Panorama, I think he's still getting used to his car setup. Then Craig Wesley also going down the mountain. Unfortunately, still getting acquainted with some of the intricacies of this track, and it's a very difficult track to master, this one. We'll definitely still see people spinning and careering off the track, but I remember back when I used to race this with Skip Barbers, I'll get back to my story in a while. Dennis Mitchell jumping up into the mix for the front runners, the three front runners, doing a 2:07.434. Now putting the pressure on Donnie van Rooyen as well. So I think all three of them are really gunning for this first position. If you can stay in that pole position into this section right here, then it's very difficult to follow another car from here. So I think qualifying first is definitely going to be a big factor. But yeah, back to my story. So racing on here with Skip Barbers been quite interesting, because through the downhill section, it's so easy to step out the rear of the car, and it's so easy to lose traction through some of these corners, because it's definitely a mix between slow and fast. So you can't really put too much downforce on the cars. You don't want to have too much drag, although with these cars it's not that big of a problem. But it's still such a big track that you've got so many variables you need to account for, that you really need to have a bit of an all-rounder car, and you're going to have to compromise for the more difficult corners. And that's going to result in the car being a lot more nervous or twitchy, if I can use the word, going through some of the corners. So it makes it a difficult track to drive. It makes it a difficult track to set up for. And I can already see that the person winning this track is going to be the person that's best prepared for the circumstances. That's probably also got the skills to adapt to many different situations. So Peter Gelner is going around as we're talking, struggling with his time at the moment. Michael Rust going up the mountain and slightly gaining some time. So we'll keep an eye on this gentleman right here. So I also spoke about a corner called the cutting, and it's this one right here, where you basically go just next to a wall, and it's a very blind corner. So it's very important that you get a good exit up this uphill section, since you don't want your engine to be bogged down. But the entry of the corner is a wall, and the exit of the corner is a solid wall. So judging that and not making a mistake is really challenging, and kind of affects you in terms of how courageously you can attack that corner. So unfortunately, Mitchell Rust losing a bit of time down the mountain. We've got Timo Smit going around on an outlap. Dani van Rooyen not yet finding the improvement that he's looking for. There's Mitchell also still on an outlap. And then Sean Webber is sitting in the pits, and Dylan Pasaki coming around with a bit of a difficult lap on his part. So lots of drivers still struggling. Going back to Timo Smit, so he's going to be preparing for another lap, so we'll keep an eye on him. And let's do a full round of Bathurst on board with Timo Smit. So Murray's Corner, very important that you get a very good exit through here, since this is one of the straights on the track, and it kind of looks a bit small compared to the others, but still a very important one. Then maintaining your speed onto the mountain straight, so you can see the mountain right in front of you there as you start preparing for Quarry Bend. So carrying as much speed and just focusing on all your different shifts, making sure that you don't cost yourself time. And now you start preparing for the mountain. So keeping your speed at a reasonable level, not losing too much through Quarry Bend, and now it's the cutting. So this is that scary corner that I spoke about. So the entry is very important. Completely blind, you can't see the exit, and at the last moment you can see how much speed you can actually carry through that corner. Now going up Griffin's Mount and Ride Park, also tricky corner since you're going over a hill, so some of your grip does fall away. You can see even Timo struggling there with the barrier there. So now through McCallamy Park, very important corner, you still need the speed. Now difficult braking zone, and down the mountain we go. So through Skyline, through the S's, it's really difficult to make sure that the back end of the car doesn't step out through those turns. Then the Dipper and Forest Elbow right in front of us. Now very important to keep that speed up. So unfortunately Timo hasn't been able to beat his previous time. He's still putting in a very fast lap time right here. So down the Conrod straight, well, down and up a straight with undulations. So that's a first. So pretty long. And now into the chase. So again, important that you don't lose too much speed. Unfortunately, that's going to cost a lot of time for Timo Smit right here. And then we've prepared to go to Murray's Corner onto the pit straight again. So that's going to be 207 something for Timo. And as we were riding aboard, Van Rooyen snuck through with a blistering lap time of almost 206 flat. So that's very impressive. I'm almost at a loss for words. And then jumping up with the 207.427 into the mix for third. So that's going to put a lot of pressure on Dennis Mitchell to outperform his own time. So well done to Ian. Looking at Dennis, he doesn't have an answer for that yet. He's going to have to go around again. So let's see whether he still has the fuel in his car for another lap. And finding that speed onto the mountain straight. So he definitely still has time to gain on his lap time. And he only needs 300th of a, well, not 300, 100th of a second, give or take, to move back into third. I think he might even want to see if he can aim for the second position. So into the cutting. And unfortunately, he's run out of fuel from what it seems. Then Fasaki with a bit of a slow time at the moment. Mt.Panorama finding some time going onto the mountain straight, so we'll hang around with him for a bit. I'll also see in the chat we've got Boston Gaming shouting "Go Craig!" That's going to be Craig Wesley, and "Go Melbourne!" That's going to be Melbourne Coast. So definitely good luck to both of those races. I know Boston Gaming has been in this chat since the start of the series, so it's also a big thank you to you for watching along for all of these races. So Mt.Panorama keeping in line with his performance, and just as I say that, he's finding some time. So he's right at the limit, driving around these corners. So preparing for the mountain section, and fortunately misses his braking zone. Does his best to keep out of the way there of Dennis. I think that might have been Dennis Mitchell going around there. And yes, it was Dennis Mitchell. So Dennis Mitchell still on the outlap, so fortunately he hasn't lost time there. Looking around, Dani van Rooyen still finding improvements on his time. I don't know how he's doing that, but he's absolutely flying. So Gert Snowman saying "Go Dennis" and saying hello to everyone. So yeah, good luck to Dennis there as well, and hello to you, Gert. So Van Rooyen comes across the line and is the first driver into the 205. So that's a 205.790. That is extremely impressive. So I can only imagine Timo Smit, how he must feel seeing that time pop onto the board. So let's see if he has an answer for it. He's coming in from his outlap. So he's going to be putting the pedal to the metal and seeing what answer he has to the time that Van Rooyen has put in. So up the mountain straight. Slight improvement. I think he's just on the limit of what he's capable of. I think if he's going to find time, it's going to be down the mountain section. I think he's lost some time there before. So we'll see what he can do from there. Looking around the field, everything looking good for now. Sean Webber is looking very solid in his 5th position. So we might jump to him next. Unfortunately, going up the mountain, Timo Smit is losing time. Finding it back, finding some, or clawing back some pace on this lap. But this is going to be the deciding factor. So, ready for going down the mountain. Let's see if Timo is able to pull something out of his hat. So unfortunately, he's right on the limit of what he can do through here, and unfortunately, he's losing a bit of time. So I think, yeah, he's going to bail out of that one. It's just going to cost him too much time. Dani van Rooyen still going around. No reason to do so. It's the end of qualifying, so he's probably just practicing a bit. Sean Webber is still on an outlap. I don't know if that's going to give him an opportunity to do another lap, but we'll see what happens there. Dylan Fasagi also seems to be done. Mt.Panorama biding some time. So up the mountain he goes, and we'll see whether he can get some extra time in pocket. So 3/10 down, and looking very, very solid. It's all going to come down to that downhill section. 5/10, so doing really well. I think he's hooking everything up as he should. Looking very solid. So now, remember, this is where he missed his braking zone. So flying through, hooking up the corners. So this is looking really good for Monet. Keeping control of the car, slide a bit of oversteer as the rear end steps out. Now let's look at this. So getting a good exit onto the Conrod straight, very important. Got one other driver on the track also going around. I think that might be Rian van der Westhuizen on his lap. Ray looking really good. Into the chase we go. And it's in the braking zone, making sure you get power down nice and early through the chicane. Now one corner left. So it's absolutely imperative that he gets this braking zone nailed. He only needs to get across the finish line, and that's going to be 7.5 tenths down, and that's going to put him into 6th. I can imagine Monet Deploy being very, very happy with that. One more racer on track, and unfortunately I've only got his gamer tag, so I'm not exactly sure who this is. Possibly one of the newer racers. So at some point we're going to have a time limit on what's allowed for qualifying, so I think that might be it, and we'll jump to advertisements. So your drivers for the race is going to be Van Rooyen in pole, then Timo Smit, Ian Upton, Dennis Mitchell, Sean Webber, Monet Deploy, Dylan Versaghi, Melvin Gous, Pieter Geldenhuis, Craig Wesley, Michael Rust, Rian van der Westhuizen, and then unfortunately no time for Maurice van Wyk that I can see on the board, so he'll be starting from the back of the grid. But yeah, we've got the ambulance right in front of us right here, so hopefully we're not going to need it. I'll jump into advertisements, and then as soon as we've got the races on the grid, we'll be ready to get going. Welcome back, everyone. So we've got the races gridded up, ready to get going. You can see Timo Smit in the Cat livery and Dani van Rooyen in the Red Bull livery. So lights are up and we are waiting. Race director having a bit of a laugh. 3 lights, 4, 5, 6 lights. Engines are revving up, lights are out, and we are off. So Timo Smit getting a bit of wheel spin that's going to bog him down. Dani van Rooyen getting a very good launch and going to be able to defend on the inside. Mt.Panorama running wide on exit there. Dennis Mitchell also having a bit of an off track, so he's fallen back. Sean Webber looking good. And up the mountain straight we go. First to cross over the crest. Dani van Rooyen miles ahead of the pack. Timo Smit coming under pressure. He's now being overtaken by Ian Upton. So jumping further back, Ian Upton and Timo Smit having a bit of a upright battle. We'll see, I think that's Rian van der Beesthuizen having a bit of a spin. But Dylan Versaki now looking at 4th position. Sean Webber spinning out. All kinds of chaos as we go up the mountain. Who will survive? Who will not? As we go across the crest. So Dani van Rooyen leading the pack as they go prepare for going down the mountain. Ian Upton following closely behind him. As we can see, down the mountain section we go. Just how tricky it is to follow someone through here. Behind us you can see Timo Smit struggling to keep up. But that's not going to matter too much. You just need to survive going through here and get a good exit onto the Conrad Straight. You can see Dylan Versaki there behind Timo Smit. Melvin Goos sneaking into 5th. Dennis Mitchell hanging there in position 6. I see in the background, if our TV cameras will allow it, a little battle here between Dennis Mitchell and Melvin Goos. Melvin on the inside, well, on the outside actually for the chase. Now defending on the inside and managing to keep Dennis Mitchell at bay. And Upton's keeping in touch with Van Rooyen up ahead, but for now we're going to keep an eye here on Dennis Mitchell as he fights with Melvin Goos. So keeping in touch with him, 3/10 behind. He has a bit of a draft. He just needs to keep close by for the mountain straight. Let's see, can he get a good exit? You can see that gap slowly, actually not coming down, but opening up. So Melvin Goos getting the better drive, sneaking out from under Dennis Mitchell. So he's going to be happy with that. That's a bit of pressure off him as he goes up on the mountain. As I say that, Dennis Mitchell starts to catch up with him again. So something for Melvin Goos to have in the back of his mind. The front of the pack still fairly bunched together. Everyone keeping within a second of one another, although Dylan Versaki 2 seconds behind Timo Smit. So now we also need to know that Van Rooyen and Smit are in a battle for championship position. So it's going to be interesting how the situation unfolds between the two of them. But he has closed down the gap. So Van Rooyen, Upton and Smit all following very closely. They can still see each other and they can stay within their opponent's mind. Dennis Mitchell now very close to Melvin Goos yet again. And yet again, as I say that, Goos gets the better exit out of the first corner, out of the Hell's Corner. But I do suspect that Mitchell might pull closer during this mountain section. Unfortunately, contact between the two drivers. That's going to allow Mt.Panorama to come through. And I think Dennis will be waiting for Melvin there as we go along. And you can see Mitchell not making use of the situation, but allowing Melvin Goos to go on ahead. So Timo Smit still keeping in touch with Upton. And it's going to be interesting how much time he's going to either lose or gain as we go down the mountain. Dylan Fasaki also still nice and close to the front leader, so he's definitely still in the mix for things. So we'll see how good of an exit does Timo get here. Fortunately, he's not close enough to really catch a draft, but he's at least close enough to put the pressure on Ian Upton in front of him. Melville Coast and Dennis Mitchell now having a battle down the mountain, and we've got Marius van Beek that's jumped into 8th. Considering he didn't put in the qualifying time, this is very high up in the standings. So he's in a battle here down the Conrod Straight with Michael Rust, and this is going to be interesting. What's the battle going to come down to? So Michael Rust pulling ahead before the chase and securing the position. As they go into the chase, we've got Van Beek still fairly close, but I do think that might be Michael Rust securing the position, at least for the next lap. Timo Smith very close to Ian Upton up the mountain straight and pulls ahead of Timo Smith pulling ahead of Ian Upton and securing the second position. So he's on the hunt for Dani van Rooyen. He really needs to get more points than Van Rooyen here, or at least make sure that he minimizes the point deficit between himself and Van Rooyen. So he's going to be hunting down that gap between himself and Van Rooyen. Ian Upton looking to see if he can catch the draft from Timo and keep up to kind of close down the gap between himself and the front runners. And Fasaki hanging on for dear life in 4th position. So Upton definitely not giving up this fight, although I think for now he's just going to manage that gap and see if they can close down on Van Rooyen. The rest of the pack spreading out with about 2 seconds between most drivers. So I think for now it's all going to come down to who's going to make the first mistake and who's going to be able to really eke out their tires, eke out their car's performance, and make sure that they can perform consistently and at a consistent pace. So Ian Upton making sure that he doesn't allow Timo Smith to get away, so he's still within that 500 milliseconds that he needs to get a good drop. And you can see Timo Smith opening up the throttle as he just catches more performance out of his lap. 3/10 down on his delta, so he's definitely improving his lap times. I think Ian might be using that to his advantage to kind of follow along as they start catching up with Van Rooyen. Further down the field, Michael Rust now in the battle with Marius van Beek again as they pass Craig Wesley. So Michael Rust now under pressure from Craig Wesley as they go into the back end of the circuit. Onto the last few corners. So Van Beek not opening up the gap yet, but I think this battle between Michael Rust and Craig Wesley is going to count in his favor. So now through Hull's corner onto the mountain straight they go. And Marius van Beek pulling to the left, trying to break the toe as they pull alongside. So I think Michael Rust got one hell of a drive out of that corner. Mornay Deploy pulling ahead of Dylan Fasaki, who unfortunately has a bit of a close acquaintance with the wall. I can imagine Mornay Deploy being very happy with that fourth position. It's all going to come down to consistency now. Up ahead, Upton still within a second of Timo Smith. And they've closed down that gap between Van Rooyen and Timo. So Timo now under 2 seconds away from Van Rooyen as they go onto the Conrod Straight. You can see massive improvements on Upton's lap time. So he's definitely learned a few things from Timo as they've gone along. back further in the back, Craig Wesley, I can find him. Something's really wrong with my timing tower, but Craig Wesley in one big battle here with Marius van Wyk and Michael Rust as they go onto the Conrad Straight, onto the back end of the circuit. Unfortunately losing out as he doesn't get the best drive that he can onto the straight. But still keeping up. Not really close enough for a move into the chase, but it definitely gives him an opportunity to pull closer through the pit straight, and Marius van Wyk pulling across. I think something might have happened there with Marius van Wyk. You can see him dropping back quite a lot. So I think that might have been a bit of a mistake and a correction from his side. Unfortunately, some of the cameramen doing a bit more of a nature live documentary than keeping an eye on the race. I will be doing that for you. So, Dani van Rooyen out in front, holding on to his lead with a 1.3 second gap to the next driver, but that driver is hunting down the gap. So Obsolete Paper here on the Twitch channel. Thank you very much for watching. He's actually American war veteran, joining us from the United States of America. So yeah, we're actually busy commentating on a league's final race for Sim Experience South Africa, and we've got a battle between these two gentlemen right here. Van Rooyen, so Dani van Rooyen and Timo Smit fighting out for the championship points. Currently, as we're sitting right here, Timo Smit is sitting on 250 points and Dani van Rooyen sitting on 241. So a very close battle between the two of them. And remember, there's two races we've got here to gain points for. And it's going to be one hell of a battle. So we've now got people joining from different countries. Amazing battle here in Australia on the circuit of Bathurst. So up the mountain we go. Timo Smit has closed down the gap. It's now 5/10. He's got the draft in front of him. He's got that less dense air that's helping him just drive up the mountain that much faster. So Van Rooyen, well aware that he's got this threat behind him, and they've got someone in front there. I'll have to see exactly which driver that is. I think that is Michael Rust that we've got in the foreground there, that's going to at some point find space to let these two by. Not the easiest task on this circuit, I can tell you that much. So unfortunately, I think they're only going to reach him by the mountain section, and Michael Rust being very nice and giving them the space to fight. So I think Van Rooyen is going to be very happy with that. Michael Rust going out of his way to make sure that he's not holding up the fight for the title. I think Timo maybe not as happy that he's been that nice, since he would have been able to catch Van Rooyen down the mountain section. But the battle continues. Sean Webber is also in a battle here with Van der Westhuizen, so I'll just quickly jump to him. They're going up the mountain straight. Sean pulling ahead of Van der Westhuizen here. Van der Westhuizen not letting up, but slightly compromising his exit or his entry into the corner. And it's going to give Sean Webber the edge as they go up the mountain. Back to Timo Smit, so keeping up with Van Rooyen. Unfortunately, Ian Upton has dropped back at some point, so he's unfortunately had a bit of an accident. And it does take quite a lot of time to turn this car around if you're on the circuit confines. So into Hull's corner. You can see Dani van Rooyen just managing to stay ahead. I think Timo is still looking for a space where he can see if there's a weakness in Van Rooyen's armor, but Van Rooyen showing no weakness. And giving Timo a lot to think about as they fight up the mountain. We've got Ty Matthews shouting for Ian Upton. And Bosnay Gaming still shouting for Craig and Melvin. So, looking very good for both of these drivers. Timo Smith just managing the gap, just making sure that he doesn't get held up at one of the apexes. And if there is a mistake from Van Rooyen, that he doesn't get caught up in it. It's also very difficult to make sure that if your opponent makes a mistake on a close circuit or on a narrow circuit like this, that you don't get taken out as well. Down the mountain we go. Timo Smith just keeping in touch. He's going to be focusing on that last corner, and it's going to be now. So keep an eye on that delta. Let's see how his exit looks out of this corner. Down the Conrad Straight. Not close enough for a draft. I think Timo Smith has got the pace to stay behind Van Rooyen, but whether he's got the pace to overtake is going to be a different question entirely. 180 Deploy still sitting there in 4th position, holding on for dear life, and doing a pretty darn good job of it. Into the last corner here with Van Rooyen and Timo Smith. Timo still just managing to keep up. Now this is going to be the portion where I think Timo might be wondering about where can he really attack. We've got 2.5 minutes left of this race. They're going to cross the finish line before that 2.5 minutes are up. So that's going to mean it's going to be this lap, one more lap for them to complete the lap and then cross the finish line, and then it's going to be one extra lap after that. So effectively 2.5 laps of this race left to go for these two drivers, and Timo has to think at this moment, where can I attack? Because Van Rooyen's defense has been looking flawless up until this point, and Timo's actually losing out a bit of time. So he's going to be wondering about where can he attack. I'm just going to jump down a bit and show you here that 180 Deploy is right on the rear of Ian Upton. I'm going to keep an eye on that battle between Van Rooyen and Smith. But for now, I just also want to have a look at these two and see how they get along. So this is the battle for third. 180 Deploy is going to get massive amounts of points out of this if he succeeds. I'm just going to have a look and see what the championship points look between these two drivers. So Ian Upton is even lower down in the standings than 180 Deploy. So both of these drivers are really going to be looking to get a good position here, and both of them looking good for a very solid finish. So I can imagine the difficult decision in René's mind on whether he just stays close enough to Ian to catch him if there's a mistake and then just focus on consistency, or whether he actually risks making a move so close to the end of the race. So Timo Smith now going across the line. So the checkered flag has not waved yet, so we still have 2 more laps of racing left. And Timo Smith getting one monster of an exit onto the mountain straight. You can see the seconds ticking down. I don't know whether he's going to have the pace to overtake Van Rooyen. Let's see. Is he looking for the inside? No, he's not going to risk that. And then he's going to stick behind Van Rooyen. Van Rooyen doing very well to absorb all of this pressure. Leading this race from the get-go. Doing a superb job of it. Further back, when I deploy Dylan Versaghi. No, not Dylan Versaghi, Ian Upton. I apologize. Up the mountain. 3/10 between the two drivers. And Monet keeping very close here. He's going to want to keep in touch and then look to make a move onto the Conrad Straight. back to Timo Smith and Donny van Rooyen. Down the mountain we go. This is the dangerous part of the circuit for these two drivers. You can see Timo Smith kind of just rolling through the corners, making sure he keeps up with Van Rooyen. Van Rooyen trying to get the throttle down earlier. Timo Smith rolling around the corner, getting a very good exit by the looks of things. So 5 tenths, 4 tenths, almost 4 tenths through the Conrad straight. He's gaining on Van Rooyen. So he's going to go into the chase. It's still possible to make a move into the chase. Not going to be that possible for Timo Smith. You can see him braking early to avoid running into the back of Van Rooyen. So now onto the back portion of the circuit. Through the last corner. Timo just putting a nose out there and then pulling onto the racing line again to resume normal racing. Some clouds in there, but no adverse weather and just perfect weather for racing. So final lap as we go around and deploy, and Ian Upton swapping position before the last corner. So when I getting that move done right out of the chase. Up the mountain we go. Timo Smith very close to Van Rooyen now. Is he going to go up the inside? Looking at the inside, no defense from Van Rooyen. Van Rooyen knowing that he doesn't really need to hold Smith up at this point. Timo Smith falling back in line, seeing what he can do. So Ian Upton very close to Mornay Deploy. Mornay Deploy making a mistake into the mountain section. You can see him running very defensively up the mountain. Unfortunately gets pinned against the wall there. So Ian Upton assuming the position of third. Up ahead, Timo Smith on the mountain with Van Rooyen. I'll just jump back. So Craig Wesley looking at making a move at Melvin Thosia for position, 7th position. Melvin Thosia just pulling it out ahead, looking very unstable on his car control, but just keeping it in control. Timo Smith, and there's been a mistake from Donny van Rooyen. Donny van Rooyen running very slowly now. I don't know if he's got damage to his car, so that damage must have occurred through the mountain section as I jumped to some of the other drivers, so apologies for that. But Timo Smith running away with first in this lap. We've now got Ian Upton jumping into third, into second, Mornay Deploy jumping into third. Van Rooyen looking very slow indeed. It might actually not be that he made a mistake, but rather that he got an issue with his fuel. Dylan Versace now ahead of Van Rooyen. In front of him, I think that's the car of Jan van der Besthuizen. So, finishing order, Timo Smith, Ian Upton, Mornay Deploy, and then Craig Wesley and Melvin Close having a battle here down the Conrad Straight, and we'll see who's got the fast pace. So, Craig Wesley on the inside, overtaking Melvin Close into the chase, but the job isn't done yet. Melvin Close is still within striking distance. Melvin Close looking very loose on the back of the car. There in the front, in the foreground, we can see Donny van Rooyen limping his way to the finish line. He's definitely run out of fuel. So we know a bunch of guys spoke about the fuel loads at the start of this race. Maurice van Wyk coming across the line at 9 and pushing Donny van Rooyen across the finish line. So your finishing order: Timo Smith, Ian Upton, Mornay Deploy, Dennis Mitchell, Versaghi, Wesley, Van Rooyen, Goos, Van Wyk, Van der Westhuizen, Rust. Sean Webber, unfortunately having equipment trouble. And then Geldenhuis. So that's going to be the race for now. We're going to have a reverse grid for the start of the next race. So that's going to be Michael Rust assuming pole. And I'm going to jump to ad break, and then we'll be right back. But that's really something. One of the racers running out of fuel, and one of them actually being kind enough to push him across the line. And we are back. So it's been one hell of a first race, and definitely one to remember. I also think there might be a few races that are going to consider adding a little bit extra fuel in the tank for the second race. Some adjustments to the setups. And we've got our lights going out. So Michael Rust not getting to the grid in time. So that's going to mean he's going to start from the pits. So Rian van der Westhuizen leading us into this first lap. And then as we get going, so everyone getting a good start, but Rian van der Westhuizen getting one hell of a launch as we get going. So Melvin Goos and Craig Wesley sitting there behind him. Melvin Goos getting a very good exit out of Hell's Corner. Up the mountain straight we go. You can see Melvin Goos positioning himself on the inside, and he's going to be able to make a launch an attack from here. So an attack from Melvin Goos for the lead, and it's going to go through the corner. So behind him we've got Van Rooyen taking full advantage of his grid start, diving into second. Craig Wesley unfortunately being acquainted with the wall there on Van Rooyen losing control of the rear of his car. So up the mountain, Van der Westhuizen, Wesley, Mitchell, and then Smith sneaking into fourth right from the get-go. There's Mitchell looking at the back of Craig Wesley. Now unfortunately, Rian van der Westhuizen hitting the wall on the exit of the corner and spinning out. Immense pressure for these racers to deal with. Melvin Goos making his way down the mountain with a hell of a gap between him and the rest of the field. Actually, I've had a bit of a issue with my timing software that I'm running on the side. So Dennis Mitchell leading us onto the Conrod Straight. One hell of a gap between himself and Craig Wesley, was then under pressure from Timo Smith, Ian Upton and Dylan Pasaki, all in close proximity to him as we go into the chase. So Timo Smith making sure he's losing no time. Lock up from Ian Upton. Dylan Pasaki catching up because of that. So Craig Wesley dealing well with the pressure that he's getting from Timo Smith, but he's going to have to be wary going into the mountain straight. Unfortunately, Malmachos has damage. Through the outside goes Timo Smith. I think that might be Craig Wesley also opening the door and saying, listen, I just want to catch your drop through this next section. He knows that he's going to lose the position, but he knows he can gain some time from following in the slipstream. So Timo Smith leading the charge here. Behind him, a battle between Ian Upton and Dylan Pasaki. Dylan Pasaki getting very close to Upton as they go up the mountain. Bit of oversteer from Upton. And Pasaki looking for any kind of mistake here that he can capitalize on. Craig Wesley coming into the mix as the two racers catch up with him. Through the top end of the mountain, you need to keep control. This is where Rianto Investa is in metal wall. It's a very difficult corner. Slight oversteer from Upton, and that looks like Malmachos' car. Unfortunately, moving down the pack a little bit. Down the mountain section we go, and a very crowded section this is at the moment. Craig Wesley holding off both Pasaki and Upton. And behind us, Mornay Deploy also coming into the mix now. And unfortunately, Upton not getting the fastest exit possible. Now coming under pressure as Mornay starts nudging all the way closer. Dylan Pasaki now looking at the back of Malmachos. I don't know what's going on with Melvin's position on track, but he's now also come into the mix. Front runners rounding off the lap now, as we can see almost 6 of the cars in this pit straight. Craig Wesley leading the charge up the mountain. See a string of cars behind him. In the foreground, you saw Timo Smith closing in on Dennis Mitchell. He's ready to go through this section of track. I'm just going to keep an eye on that Timo Smith battle, because this is going to be 4 major points. Back behind, Ian Upton closing in on Dylan Pasaki. Mornay Deploy now firmly in the mix and ready to pounce. So this pack is really stuck together over the first few laps. A big slide there from Malmachos, and he manages to go on ahead. Not exactly sure what's happening there, but Malmachos falling back. That's allowed Pasaki up and deploy through. Timo Smith sticking with Mitchell, and now very close to the back end of the championship leader. Mornay Deploy also closing down the gap on Ian Upton as we go onto the Conrad Straight. I just need to check if it's the Conrad Straight or the Conrad Straight. No, it is the Conrad. So hopefully that sounds as Australian as it can sound. Through the chase, 4 of the races in the current race, or all the drivers in the current race, all within view, all within very close proximity to one another. First 6 front runners still on the pit straight, so still very close together. Back to Timo Smith and Dennis Mitchell as they go up the mountain, or rather through the mountain straight. So Timo keeping in touch, but Mitchell just opening up that gap so very slightly. It's going to be very important for him to keep up his consistency and make sure that he doesn't open up the gap, or that he doesn't close up the gap because of mistakes. Timo Smith showing that he's very capable of following cars through the race and just positioning himself if something were to happen. Dylan Versace closing up the gap between himself and Craig Wesley. Craig Wesley doing a superb job staying in third. And this is probably one of the most exciting places to be on track as we go down the mountain section. So we're on board with Ian Upton right behind Dylan Versace, and in front of him we've got Craig Wesley. Behind us, Rene Deploy just putting his nose under the rear wing of Ian Upton. I can imagine how distracting that must be. That red Coca-Cola car in your rearview mirror. Down the Conrad Straight, getting a very good exit. And just keeping up with the likes of Versace and Wesley. Up in front, Timo Smith slightly dropping behind. And into the chase we go as Dylan Versace and Craig Wesley swap positions. So now preparing for the last portion of the circuit, and Craig Wesley is going to come under pressure from Ian Upton now. I can imagine that move possibly happening down the mountain straight if Upton gets a very, very good exit. Craig still doing very well, fighting out of position, but doing the best that he can to make use of this opportunity. So on the mountain straight with Versace, Wesley, Upton and Deploy. Across the crest we come. Versace slightly pulling ahead, but Wesley making sure he keeps a hold of his position. So he's been doing very well on lap times. And I think Upton just doesn't know where he can attack yet. He's going to have to figure it out soon, because Rene is sitting right on his rear. Quite literally as well, as they almost make contact. We'll keep an eye on these drivers. Craig Wesley making his car almost as wide as the track. You can see Upton frustrated, not finding a place to really attack or make a move. Now down the mountain we go. Versace still slightly within view. And Rene just making himself known. Upton really finding himself between a rock and a hard place. You can see he's slightly falling behind Wesley as he gets distracted as they go down the mountain. So Upton not really within range to put too much pressure on Wesley, but Rene Deploy is definitely very, very close by, ready for any opportunity to pounce into the chase. Craig Wesley's just not defending too much, but just making sure that his car's not on the inside. Rene Deploy on Ian Upton going through the last corner, and Rene with the inside line and comfortably making the pass. And now it's all going to come down to how good of an exit did he get with that attack. Ian Upton unfortunately missing a braking turn. I don't know whether there was contact between the two cars, but unfortunately going off track there. So Craig Wesley has a moment to breathe, I think there's a man with a mission behind him. Up in front, Dennis Mitchell still has his sights, or still has Timo Smith within his rearview mirror's sights, but doing a superb job just consistently getting those laps kicked off as they go along. Further down the pack, not too much happening. I'm looking to take this opportunity while everything's quite quiet to speak about this man. So if my eyes serve me correctly, this was the guy that was pushing Donny van Rooyen across the line. And unfortunately, I think don't see Van Rooyen in this race. So he must have had some equipment problems. But yeah, Maris Blake being very kind to push a competitor across the line. Okay, going further up ahead, Ian Upton has recovered. He has held onto the position behind Mornay Deploy. So Mornay is definitely not going to be able to rest. But I don't think that's something that's on his mind at the moment. As we start near the end of the circuit, and he's starting to close down the gap between himself and Craig Wesley. Craig again doing a superb job, fighting completely out of position. Doing a superb job. Timo Smith up the mountain pass. The gap is opening up slightly. I don't know if Mitchell might be putting out some lap times that Timo Smith has no answer for. So I'm just quickly going to check the lap times for us. Let's see what are these gentlemen doing. So while we wait for that to load. Also just hello from Andre Hildebrand, Time Matthews, shouting for Ian Upton. And then what's the name gaming, again shouting for Craig and Melvin. And I think he'll be very happy with Craig Wesley fighting in 4th position. Currently in a battle here with this man right here, Mornay Deploy. So Craig feeling immense pressure. He's got the red Coca-Cola car in his rear view mirror. Down the mountain we go. This is going to be very crucial. You can see Mornay making himself known, putting the pressure on his opponent and playing some mind games. So we'll see whether this is going to affect Craig Wesley as we go onto the Conrod Straight. Mornay Deploy getting a very good exit, cutting down the gap. In the background we can see Ian Upton also coming around the corner. Over the crest we go. Mornay in the draft, but maybe not close enough for move into the chase. Very crucial braking zone. Mornay just keeping very close, just making himself known. Wesley just again making his car seem wider than it is. Timo Smith 2.5 seconds behind Mitchell, so there's definitely a disparity in pace between those two drivers. But for now, this is where we want to be. Craig Wesley holding on for dear life, trying all that he can to stay ahead of Melvin. Sorry, not Melvin, Mornay Deploy. Up the mountain pass, 1/10 between the two of them. There might be an opportunity for a move here. Not enough. Mornay Deploy runs out of straight and has to tuck in behind for the remainder of this mountain section. Up the mountain we go. Craig doing a superb job of being as consistent as possible. Mornay Deploy looking for an opportunity, but not finding it. As Craig Wesley parks his car on the exit, unfortunately forcing Mornay to control his speed a little bit more than he would want to. He's now preparing for the downhill section. Renee, again, just keeping his car within striking distance, but also trying to cause a mistake from his opponent. Around Forest Curve. And unfortunately, Craig Wesley getting a poor exit, and that's going to give Renee the position. But that's the mind games that I spoke about. I don't know if he's done it on purpose, but his car can be very distracting through that mountain section. So that's given him the small edge they needed to just pull on ahead. But Craig Wesley doing a superb job, just still even fighting for this position. He's held on until almost the end of the race. So that's been a superb race for him. I think he can be very happy with it. If we look at how the championship standings are looking. Timo Smith up ahead, 1.5 seconds, slowly closing down the gap again, but not close enough for some move. He is lapping slightly faster than Dennis Mitchell at the moment. His last lap being 0.3 quicker. We'll see how he's doing. Top speed of the car is reaching 290 kilometers an hour. That seems a bit quick. It's probably through what, thanks to the long straight. That's very fast for these cars. Alright, Ian Upton is now, he was within striking distance, but that's just how important consistency is on this track. Wesley doing a superb job keeping his car in control and in contention. So he's not let go of Mornay quite yet. So still within a second of Mornay deploy. Just making sure that he's in position for if there's a mistake from his opponent. And it's now Mornay deploy that has to deal with the pressure of a car breathing down your neck as they go onto the Conrod Straight. I think this is going to be the position between them. Big swap of position between Dennis Mitchell and Timo Smith. They had almost 2 seconds between them. No, that's the timing tower having some issues. So I apologize for that. False alarm. But now there's still a 2-second gap between these two drivers. I think that's also the difficult thing with how these circuits are programmed. Sometimes there is a bit of a miscommunication between the different marshalling stations, and we have something like that happening. Down to 1 second between Dennis Mitchell and Timo Smith. Dennis slightly feeling the pressure, but almost there. So we're on the second last lap of this race, and two big battles to keep an eye on track are this man right here, Timo Smith, and the championship leader, Dennis Mitchell. Now I have not done my calculations yet, and we'll probably only see the scores update after the event has taken place. But this is also going to be very crucial in the championship fight. Then also another battle to keep an eye on is going to be, although Wesley has pulled ahead of Ian Upton, so I think it's just going to come down to consistency as we near our final lap. Timo Smith now 1.2 seconds between himself and Dennis Mitchell. And Dennis fighting to maintain a good grip on his championship standings at the moment. Remember, the championship points are 268 for Mitchell, 250 for Timo Smith before the evening started. So that doesn't account for the points yet. A win is going to be worth 25 points, and a second position 20 points, and then third 18. So there is the possibility that this last lap is going to determine the championship lead. When I deploy, holding down a position as this swap between him and Dylan Versace. Not exactly sure what happened there. Oh, it's still that timing issue that we are having with some of the marshalling posts. So no move between Mornay Deploy and Dylan Versace. They're definitely too far away from each other to really do anything. Timo is slightly losing a bit of control, but doing very well to maintain control of his car. There's Mitchell, breathing a bit of a sigh of relief, but he's not home free yet. Timo Smith hunting him down, 1.1 second, 1.2 seconds down the mountain straight. Not the mountain straight, I apologize. Down the S's. Timo doing all that he can to keep up with his opponent's car. Now under 1 second, 8 tenths, 7 tenths. How good of an exit has he gotten out of this corner? Down to 7 tenths. So Timo Smith doing the best that he can. He really wants these 5 points. It's all going to really come down to the last few corners. Through the chase, as Timo Smith chases down Dennis Mitchell. 7 tenths, 6 tenths, last corner. And this is all crucial championship points. Dennis Mitchell crosses the line and finishes first in the second race of the evening. Timo Smith coming in with the second position. Dylan Versace kind of having a bit of a race on his own. Third position across the line. Mornay Deploy in fourth position. Last corner for him. A little bit of an oversteer slide. Nothing too crucial. Fourth position secured. Craig Wesley. Oh, incredible drive for fifth position. And I can imagine him being very happy with that. Ian Upton across the line, 4-6. Then on track still, we've got Michael Rust. Kind of in no man's land. Coming across the line for 7th position. Behind him, someone that doesn't bump draft, but does bump fuel saving, if that is even a thing. That's going to be Maurice van Wyk, finishing off his last lap down the Conrad Straight. Behind him, Rian van der Westhuizen, looking to finish off his race as well. Into the chase. Looking very nice and tidy. Slight bit of oversteer, but not enough to be too much of a worry. And now for the last corner. Coming across the line for 8th position is Maurice van Wyk. Rian van der Westhuizen securing his 9th position. And finishing off the season with a bang. So, your race results for this second race: Dennis Mitchell, Timo Smith, Dylan Versace, Mornay Deploy, Craig Wesley, 5th position, Ian Upton, 6th, Michael Rust, 7th, Van Wyk, 8th, Van der Westhuizen, 9th, and then Melvin Goos, unfortunately, having some equipment issues. So I'm just going to jump to a different screen, away from the track. So that concludes our season. I'm going to see if I can find those two drivers and pull them in for a bit of an interview and see what they have to say for us. So I'll be with you in a second. and then we'll see if they have something interesting to say. All right, welcome back, everyone. So I've got with me in voice chat our first race winner, Timo Smit, and then our second race winner, Dennis Mitchell. So Timo, that was a very, very tough first race, and I saw you just keeping in touch with Van der Rooyen all the time. And then that last lap must have been an interesting one with what happened with Van der Rooyen. What are your thoughts? What went through your mind?
Well, bad luck. First of all, shame, man. I mean, if I look at the lap times that Donnie put in over the weekend, he was just blitzing fast. I couldn't, we keep up with that pace. So shame, man. Really bad luck. I saw that he started ghosting, lifting where he's not normally lifting, and then I had a quick look left upper screen, and I saw that I'm also running low on fuel, so I also started ghosting behind him. So at the end of the day, we crept over the finish line. So sorry, man. Bad luck for Donnie. That's not how I want to win a race against a guy like that. But yeah, we take the points. Final race.
Yeah, and that unfortunately he was having a bit of technical issues, but I think it was Maurice van Wyk at the end who pushed his car across the line.
Fantastic.
So yeah, it's just great sportsmanship between the guys, and it's awesome to watch. And then there's Mitchell. So getting to you, I'm just going to throw a bit of a caveat in here. On the stats page, it says 100% concluded, so this should be final. And I'd like to call these points out here. So our three front runners are, of course, Dennis Mitchell, Timo Smit, and Donnie van Rooyen. And unfortunately, Donnie, having a bit of a rough evening, is going to be in third position with 250 points. But then we've got 309 points for the championship leader and 295 for the runner-up. So extremely close all the way up to the end. And I just want to congratulate Dennis Mitchell both on winning the last race, but also clinching or winning the championship. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, great. Thanks very much. Also, thanks to Timo. I'm using his pedals for this round, so which made a big difference to actually stop the car. So finally, I've got a brake pedal that works.
I wanted
yeah,
back, Dennis.
This was quite a challenging round. I mean, I didn't have the pace to win, so I was just very lucky to pick off some guys that made mistakes again.
And I think for the second race, the big thing was at the start just surviving. I saw a lot of guys kind of running wide through some turns. No real big incidents, but I saw some people spinning up as they were going up the mountain.
Yes.
So that must have gotten quite scary at some point for quite a few of you.
About the last 5 minutes, my tires were starting to go. And at that point, I had to keep my mirrors were very occupied by Timo. And every time I made a small mistake, he was on top of me, and then I would slowly sort of ease away and make a mistake. Yeah, so I guess he was kind of just cruising, and then next thing I'm on top of him, and so that was quite lucky. And knowing that he won the first race, I knew he had the pace. So also congratulations to Timo for race 1 victory as well.
Yeah, and also congratulations with your second position, Timo. You've kind of featured in the streams a bit, and I just need to point out I don't really know Timo outside of the streams. It's just that at the start of the season we kind of saw you. You probably have a very memorable name, and you've kind of fought for it as well. Um, both of you just amazing. Like keeping that consistency up across the season is incredible. So myself and I believe the viewers as well are definitely looking forward to seeing both of you, and of course Donny van Rooyen as well, and the rest of the races as we go into some of the future series that are going to be on Sim Experience South Africa. So just a quick note, we do have a Discord link in the description of the stream. So if you want to join, we definitely have some things in the pipeline. You're going to have to be on the Discord server to see what's going to be happening. And you can see these guys are great racers to race with. Then also just a big thanks to Alwyn for being our sponsor for the season. You've really made it possible, as you can see them up on the screen right now. Also, Skinny Media, that's going to be Mornay Deploy. I just want to also thank him. He's done a lot of work with all of the video work, making everything look amazing. And yeah, just big thanks to you as well. And then for everyone watching, for all of the supporters that have been there on the YouTube channel, I've seen a few of you across all of the races. Thank you for joining us as well. And then for me, Johan, that's going to be it for the night. And see you on the track in the future. Hope you have a good evening. Thank you. Bye.